Hey everyone, Joe here. In this episode, I had the privilege of chatting with Ricky Campos, an Air Force veteran, a firefighter, and a captain at the fire department at Travis Air Force Base, California. During our discussion, we talked about firefighting, the importance of mastering one's craft, the vital role trust and confidence plays in effective teams, and much, much more. Enjoy.
Life, learning, leadership, the Llama Lounge.
Yo, welcome back to the Llama Lounge, a dialogue on all things life, learning, and leadership. This is Joe Bogdan, and I have with me another amazing guest in the lounge today, Ricky Campos. What's up, Ricky?
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing? Coming to you live from the Llama Lounge here. It's very comfortable. Very comfortable.
Man, I really appreciate you being on. And for our listeners, Ricky is an Air Force veteran, a firefighter, and currently a captain in my squadron, the 60th Civil Engineer Squadron at Travis Air Force Base, California. He is a fitness enthusiast and an all-around amazing human being. I really appreciate you being on, brother.
Well, I thank you so much for the invite. Thanks again. And man, I look forward to the dialogue we're about to bring to everybody today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So first of all, whenever we have guests on the lounge, we like to ask them to share their story because we found that, we often glean some wisdom and learn lessons through the stories of others. So I was hoping you would share with us, how did Ricky Campos become the Ricky Campos we see today?
Oh, well, there was it's a long story. No, simple story. I mean, I grew up as a dependent. I grew up in the military. My dad was a Air Force firefighter himself, and so I grew up in the firehouse. So in about 96, he retired. We moved to a small town in Arizona, and I went to school there for a little bit, and then we moved to Phoenix. High school career, so on and so forth. And in my head, I got into graphic design. I really wanted to be a graphic designer, but while going through the courses there at the local community college, I'll never forget this. I remember a guy stood up in one of my classes. We were asked to talk about, who we are and something we like to do. And this dude stood up. I'll never forget his name. His name was Pablo, and he stood up and he says, "My name's Pablo, and I'm going to be a firefighter." I remember sitting down and thinking, "No way, dude, I'm going to be a firefighter." And this, trust me, this thought had never crossed my mind before. And it was something like, it was like a gut punch. And I went home and talked to my dad that evening, and of course, Dad being a Air Force veteran himself and in the fire service, it was get in the car, let's go talk to a recruiter. And so quickly went there, and I talked to recruiters, and of course they couldn't offer a fire department. So it was one of those times in my life where I figured that if I don't do something now, nothing's going to happen. So like our slogan says, I took the bull by the horns and signed up for the Air Force Open General. So yeah, straight up, man, I took a gamble, and in basic, I got the job of firefighter. And from that day forward, it has been a tremendous ride and has been an amazing career. Did 4 years there, Travis Air Force Base active duty as a firefighter for the Air Force, and steadily climbed. I mean, I steadily climbed that all the way to 4-year staff, and was blessed to get BTZ, and was blessed to win the leadership award at ALS, and got my 4-year staff. And then, but at that time, for me, being in the military as a dependent for so long, I understood the toll it takes on a family. So I made a decision to get out after 4 years, simply because I knew that I was young enough to make that mistake. Mm-hmm. And if it was a mistake, then, I could try to come back into the military and then ride it out, become a chief, like yourself. But I found that I got into a civilian department and, enjoyed it. But thankfully, to the career and the guidance that I was given by the Air Force, had a great resume, and went through there. During that time, I was able to get my associates in fire science, get my EMT, and was blessed to be a paramedic trainee hired by the department to go through paramedic school. So during that time, I went through paramedicine and did ride-alongs with one of the busiest departments here in California, in Stockton, California, and learned a lot from other departments. And I've gained a lot of opportunity. And what better way to share that than to bring it back to where it all started? And that's where I found Travis had an opening. Travis Fire Department had an opening for a captain position. And, I threw my hand in the ring after talking with my wife and discussing the options that we had. I said, hey, this is a chance. This is a chance for me to take something back, or give something back. Give something back to the place where I started, and put my name in the ring, and went through the interview process, and was called 2 weeks later saying that I had been referred for the position, and I'd be getting in contact with the chief to set up a start date. And that was in 2015. And since that time, it has been nothing but a blessing, to say the least. It's been a blessing that I've been able to share my story, share my triumphs, and also share like some of the times where I failed, to our 18, 19, 20-year-old airmen that are coming up that don't have that life experience. And, it's been awesome. And, during this time, of course, I gotten married, and I have 2 children, I have 2 boys, and a lot of the fathering I do here at home transfers over at the firehouse as well. Of course, a lot different. Like, I'm not hugging and all that stuff, but there's a lot of things that I'm noticing in the generations that we're not having that father figure at home. So sometimes we act as supervisors, but at the same time we're playing that father role. We're helping them learning how to change a tire. We're helping them change their oil. We're helping them getting ready for their taking the girl out or whatnot. And that is like the full circle. So I've come in as a captain, and of course love firefighting, but I also see myself as as I guess a big daddy, I guess would be a fun word to say. So it's been a blessing, and I've had a lot of successes during this time, and looking for more. Always looking for more.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's a blessing for you, you say, but it's definitely a blessing for us as well to have you on the team. You're, like I said, you're an amazing human being. And I see the way that you work with the young airmen and some of the young NCOs. And I'm honored to serve with you. I really appreciate what you do every day. And like you said, it's not just about getting the job done. You're helping develop better human beings. You're helping them adult, right? learning how to change a tire. And I mean, it's very similar to what I tell our military supervisors, like, hey, your job doesn't end when when you clock out. You don't clock out, right? I mean, you may have to figure out, why Airman Stinky comes to work every day stinky. It could be just that they don't know how to do their laundry. Maybe they have money problems. They couldn't buy detergent, right? I mean, it could be just a multitude of issues. And the cool thing about it, Ricky, is that you do that, and you're not wearing the military uniform, but you're still bound by it. You know what I mean? And I think that just talks so much to your character.
Well, I appreciate that. And it is, like I said, I grew up in the Air Force, and I did my time in the military, and I chose to go back to the Department of Defense or the Air Force Fire Department because the uniform means so much to me. And I'll never forget this. So, okay, Saving Private Ryan. Okay, I remember I think I was at A1C. I'd go to a party there on base, and a staff sergeant was there who I looked up to, and kind of like halfway tipsy, and he kind of grabs me by the shoulder, and he says, "Hey, Campos, you know why? You seen that movie Saving Private Ryan?" I was like, "Yeah, of course, everyone's seen it." And he goes, "Remember that first 15 minutes?" And of course, the one where everyone's storming the beach, and the brutal massacre and whatnot. And I go, "Yeah, of course." And he's like, "That's why we press our uniform." And that comment, that little conversation right there has stuck with me throughout my career to this day. It's honoring that uniform. And that's what helps me dig in deep when it's like those days where you just don't want to show up. It's those. And it's also from that conversation right there stems, like we talked a little bit earlier about the Captain Campos in doc. And so when we get a new guy in, And this happens, we're getting them more and more frequently. But as we got a new guy in, one of the first things I do is I ask, before I set the tone. I set the tone and I say, what does 343 mean in the fires? And what does Wildland Firefighters number 19? Google that. And of course, they don't know me from anyone. They're scared of their own shadow, and that's fine. And I ask them these questions. And of course, a lot of them don't know. And I say, okay, by the close of business day, I want you to find me, and we're going to discuss it. And when they come and find me, they tell me, 343 is the number of firefighters that died in 9/11, and 19 is the number of firefighters that died in the Yarnell fire, and earlier. And I asked them, I was like, okay, well, good. Now you've told me the answer. You've told me what I want to hear, but now I want to know what it means to you. Of course they say, well, it means that, of course they're looking down. They're not really sure. It means that we're tasked with a job that could possibly kill us and yada, yada. And, of course I'm never going to say that's a wrong answer, but what I'm getting to them is this is a job where people have died doing. Mm-hmm. They would give anything to be in your position right now. So we cannot sully that name. They cannot have died in vain because, we don't want to be here. And when it comes to the 19 firefighters, the Yarnell fire, when I talk about that, it's like these were guys that knew their job day in, day out. That's what they did. Mm-hmm. They trained to be hotshots. Their supervisor was dedicated to the career, and they still got overran. And I'm not telling this to fear in them, but I'm telling them that you cannot rest. In this job, you cannot rest. There's always more to learn because we're not in the business of if it's going to happen. We're in the business of when it's going to happen. And you have to have that serious talk with them because this isn't any more propane fires they do in the academy. This isn't any more pretend scenarios. This is real. This is real now. There's no pass or fail. It's live or die. And once I establish that, I think they understand this is for real. And I'm here for real. This isn't TV. This is for real. Anything can happen. And then they see us go out on calls, and then they know that this is the real deal. And it tells them this is what we expect. We expect you to know your job, and to learn it and to understand it. So then we get into more stuff, and don't think that I'm just like, all right, fine, thank you, and I'll see you later. Right. No, then we groom them to understand one thing that is the biggest lesson I think that I like to give them is I get paid to be there, and I'm not gonna tell them how much I make or whatever, but I get paid to be there, and just like they get paid to be there, I'm gonna get my money's worth. So I expect them to get their money's worth also. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I give them a lot of examples. I'm like known as the analogy king. I say you don't go to McDonald's and pay for your extra value meal and not get your fries, right? No, you're gonna go back and complain, right? You're gonna go back and complain like, hey, I spent my money, I want my fries. It's like, yo, you're spending your money on me. Get your fries. Get the knowledge I have. Get everything you can out of me. I'm here for 48 hours. Get me. Yeah. Work me. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Because I have no problem working you guys. I have no problem.
It comes down to do your job, right? It's so simple. Like life can be simple if we let it be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't do your job. I'll do mine. And, I tell people all the time is like, if you want to be successful in life, just be really good at what you're supposed to do, what you do, and don't be a jerk. And you're probably going to go really, really far. Right?
Can we print that on a t-shirt?
Right. I was like, man, we don't have to overcomplicate things, man. Just do those two things. You're probably going to do pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, dude, that's it, man. That's the Llama Lounge secret to life, right? It's a short pamphlet.
Right now, there you go. So, hey, Ricky. So you kind of talked about, I love that too. The how you indoctrinate the folks coming in, right? But I think that a lot of folks don't really know what firefighters do. And I know that sounds like weird, but because, the name is in the title, right? But you do a lot more than fight fires, right? So I was hoping maybe you can kind of elaborate on, what firefighters are responsible for doing, because they do a lot of other things besides fight fires, but also maybe the compare and contrast to what civilian firefighters do versus what we do in the DoD.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So the first thing is, firefighters, we all look at, the famous quote is they put the wet stuff on the red stuff, right? I mean, you watch any cheesy TV show and they always say that, oh, we're going to put the wet stuff on the red stuff. And that's fine. But through the ages, it has evolved so much. We have gone, yes, of course, fire is our main planet, right? But a big chunk of what we do now is EMS. Here at Travis, like 80% of our calls are EMS. And it is starting to develop to where we are trying to develop our airmen into EMR, which is emergency medical responders. And then from there, they can spawn to EMT and then move on to paramedic. EMS in itself is a whole nother monster. It's taking for instance, it's taking a plumber and then expecting them to be an electrician. It's still in the construction mindset, but they're two different things. And then you need them to be proficient as a plumber and as an electrician. So we deal with that, but then let's add hazmat. With today's technology, with today's waste and everything like that, we have hazmat emergencies. And this is everything from, being unique to Travis is jet fuel, corrosives, anything that the military might use. We have to be able to mitigate that if there is a spill and protect the waterways. So we're dealing with that. But now, as also Travis, we're dealing with aircraft emergencies. A lot of cities won't even have that in their repertoire. And here we have that in such a small area. And then we also, of course, we talk about other hazards, about rope rescue. We're talking about water rescue, wildland firefighting. We are a whole, like an all hazards department. Not to mention the different types of fires that we deal with. Like I mentioned, wildland firefighting and structural firefighting, which is like the houses and stuff. But then you get into industrial firefighting, and that's when we're dealing with the warehouses, large structures, things of that nature. And so we have to be sure that we're ready to respond in any apparatus that we have, because any of our apparatuses can be called out for anything. Fairfield has called out our crash trucks for a plastics fire out in Sassoon. We've had wildland fires where we've had to go out for hours and hours and hours. And, of course, structural emergencies, they're on base and off base. And what I love about Travis is the fact that we have such a great partnership with our outside agencies that they trust us to come into their district and hold it down while they're fighting a fire. You don't see that a lot. And that right there is a testament to the confidence that we have, the training that we have, and the respect that we have that Travis brings. And, that's all based off of what we do. And when from there, the difference between, let's say, the DoD firefighter and the civilian firefighter, really the only difference is that a city firefighter works 1 day less in the pay period than we do. That's it. They work a 56-hour work week. We work a 72-hour work week. So that's really the only difference. We respond to the same calls. We may not be as frequent, but if you look at the size of our districts or the base compared to the size of a large city, we run some calls.
Right.
We run some calls. And the fact that in our first run district for Station 1, we have a municipal airport, we have industrial areas, hazmat waste, jet fuel storage tanks. That's just in one of our districts. We have 3 districts on base. And in the second district, it's all structural. It's the EX. It's basically a mall, a theater, and if you look at the dorms, it's apartment complexes and houses. So in the small districts that we have all the makings of a large city, and we still do some good calls. Now, big props to our fire prevention branch, because that's another thing we do is we also get into fire prevention. That's where you can see Sparky at the gates and everything like that. Well, the fire prevention is what we do to help prevent, the fires, telling people to check their smoke detectors, but also by inspections and learning what's in there and what could prevent a possible fire from happening. So there's a lot of facets to the fire department. That's one of the reasons why I really fell in love with it right out the gate. Because as a young, like high school student, I noticed that I can't sit down for the lack of a better word. Like I can't sit down. And, you know, I chose the fire because I knew there were many different things that I could get into. And I found a passion in training. And I've also found a passion in EMS. And that's something that, you know, I can drive, but I also do wildland firefighting. I like that. Oh, has that? Tell me about science. Okay, I want to learn a little bit about that. You know, and then all the other technical things that are in the fire career itself. You know, when I came into the fire service, you know, like I said, I grew up in the fire service, but I only got like a thumbnail sketch of what the fire service was. Mm-hmm. So horrible at math. I'm a horrible math student. But I come into the fire service like, okay, guys, we're going to talk about math. You need coefficients for friction loss. And they're giving me all these like these crazy math equations. And I just said, oh, this was a mistake. This was a mistake. Such a bad idea. But I got better at it, you know. But it took me for a loop. It's like I just thought I was going to be running in a burning buildings, right. You know. But I also knew that there's fire prevention. But, you know, it gives you a wide array of opportunities. And, you know, just in 2017, I was able to get my degree in emergency management because I like all the different things that I like the emergency management portion of the fire service as well. And I have a focus in Homeland Security because now that we're going to these active shooter issues, mm-hmm. and we have a rescue task force, you know, that those sadly are not going to go away. So for us to have a better idea of how to mitigate incidents like that, I see is going to be the next step for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Ricky, I kind of feel like you might be a response junkie, man. Like you like going out there. Yeah. We won't tell nobody. Yeah, nobody will know about it. So, man, that is really cool. I actually have a minor in Homeland Security because my background in power production, electrical power production, figured it'd line up with FEMA and all that. I ended up changing my degree later on because I just found love with the social sciences and other areas, but that's really cool stuff. And I think, you know, I've always worked with firefighters quite a bit because, you know, aircraft arresting systems on fighter bases and all that, being a power pro guy. So I spent a lot, and I always had a lot of respect for what you guys do because I've seen it, you just jobbing it. And, you know, I bring this full circle to what you were talking about a little while ago about, you know, taking it serious. And when you're talking to these new airmen, you know, how important it is for them to, you know, really invest in their training and understanding. I just feel sometimes, you know, generally, and I don't even mean just in the Air Force, I mean, generally, it feels like in the world, we're spending a lot of time looking for that next position or that next, you know, that promotion or whatever it is. And we're not spending enough time mastering our craft. And I really appreciate what you do because if you don't help these folks, you know, master their craft, not only are they a danger to themselves, they're a danger to your entire team, right?
Yeah. And to speak on that, mm-hmm. We've actually had this discussion in the firehouse because in the civilian fire department, it takes a guy or a firefighter. The rank structure goes firefighter, engineer, which is like a driver, and then captain, assistant chief, deputy chief. So it can take. I've known guys that have taken 5 to 7 years just to test to become an engineer, mm-hmm. because they want them to be so into the firefighter position, right. That, you know, that would be the next step. And while I agree with that wholeheartedly, I also have to see the military side. And what I mean by that is we are deploying, you know, these young men and women to forward locations, and they need to know how to do that job. Right. You know, we have a couple airmen that are deploying in October that just got here. Mm-hmm. And so I know that when they get there, they're probably going to be asked to be drivers, mm-hmm. but they haven't even really been firefighters yet. Yeah. So what I like to really kind of emphasize is, you know, when they come to us, I tell them, hey, your tech school laid a foundation and we're going to build on that foundation. You know, help me build a mansion. Mm-hmm. All right. You know, one of the things I also like to tell them is the hard thing about being a firefighter is that we are not building something. We're not making something. What I mean is like a carpenter. Let's say a carpenter who makes jewelry boxes, right? they can make a jewelry box and it can be beautiful inlays and all kinds of wonderful, beautiful things on it. Opens up ballerinas dancing and all kinds of other fun stuff, right? And someone could look at this box and they say, oh, that is a beautiful box. Wow, I can't believe you made that. We don't have that. No one's going to look at us and say like, oh, you're a beautiful firefighter. I can't believe you did, you know. No one's ever going to say that. But what they do is like, you are your own product. So you have to make it, you have to invest in yourself, and you are the product you want to be. You want to be a jacked up box? Be a jacked up box. But let me know now so I know I'm not going to put you on any of my rigs. But if you want to be that wonderful, beautiful box that people keep their wonderful, valuable jewels in, then you need to invest in yourself. And I think that has a way of kind of like hitting a nerve with a lot of them, is they have to understand that, you know, because a lot of them are coming from retail, or a lot of them are coming from, you know, fast food, you know, jobs where they've made a hamburger and they've produced something, right? Something tangible that they could see. And in the fire service, you're not really producing anything tangible until that call drops.
Right. Yeah.
When that call drops and you hit those marks, and you, let's say a CPR call, and you know you're going to your compressions, you know your compression rates, you know how to get that bag valve mask on that patient, you know what's next, get those pads on. When you start hitting those things and it doesn't even feel like you're working, that's when you've made that jewelry box. You know, and sadly, for a lot of our military firefighters, they don't see that until later on in their career. So it's hard to kind of sell this.
Right.
But at Travis, we've been blessed, bittersweet, to have had a lot of calls where they've needed to have that information. But to go back into the moving into position so quickly, you know, that was another reason why I wanted to come back to Travis, because I felt that, you know, as we were discussing before, when I left the Air Force and went to a civilian department, I thought I was well prepared. And then I go over there and it was no, no. And so, you know, but I learned everything from the Air Force. So I felt like, yeah, dude, I know this. And then I get to, and they're like, no, you know, do that. Where did you learn that? And I was like, well, this, you know, I do everything the textbook way. And they're like, no, this is easier. You know, I learned the trade, but never learned the tricks of the trade. And by being with older firefighters who had been in the service for quite a while, I learned a lot. Now, as we have people coming in from tech school, you know, respectfully, they are learning from other firefighters that haven't been on the job for very long.
Right.
So respectfully, it's like kids leading kids. And, you know, and I say that very respectfully because, you know, they haven't had the experiences. They haven't had that 3 a.m., you know, burning car in the middle of the thing, or so on and so forth. So there isn't a lot of experience behind what we're teaching.
Right.
And the opportunity I took to come back to Travis to drive that home was so that when our young men and women either stay in the military or leave, they're going to be equipped. And then that's going to take our Air Force name to other departments, almost like spread it out, right?
Right.
And they're going to be like, wow, this legit. We got a legit recruit from the Air Force. They got to be doing something right over there.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, that's part of, you know, I always talk about protecting the family name. I mean, that's our family name. We need to make sure we train people appropriately. And going back to that whole trust and the training and all that, I mean, competence plays such a big part in it. And, you know, when you're talking about how, like, you know, it could take so many years, I just immediately went back to thinking about, you know, those old sushi chefs that become the best ever, but they were only allowed to like touch the rice for the first like 5 years. You know, they weren't even allowed to touch fish yet. And I'm thinking, I was like, man, I mean, that's romantic, but we just don't have, you know, unfortunately, we don't have the time to be able to do that.
No, it's
we got to send
true.
them right out into the field. You know, I wish we did.
Yeah, no, same. I wish we did, you know, and but that's a perfect world, man. That's a perfect world. And, you know, we got to make do with what we have. And we have great resources. The Air Force has definitely provided their firefighters with great technology, great education, everything perfect. You know, it's just sometimes we just need a little bit more buy-in. Right. I guess would be something.
Well, that's the one thing. I mean, as much as we might say we don't have enough money to do all this stuff, we typically can find money if it's important, right? And we can do all these things, but one thing we can't buy is more time.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is really helping close that gap on the time and helping the guys understand, the guys and gals understand, what's important. Because I think this is one thing that I learned a while back, was that just because a firefighter, or we'll name anything, maybe it'll be EOD tech or it'll be anybody else, a big thing about building that trust is giving effective feedback. And let's say you're putting out a fire, the fire ends up being, put out. It doesn't mean that everything was successful during that entire endeavor, right? I mean, you could have,
Yeah.
like, you might be evaluating the incident commander, and it's like, well, there was 17 things you did wrong there that could have probably, mitigated this emergency even quicker, right? I mean, is that true? Like, when you see the different circumstances and you got to give that feedback to help them improve.
Yeah. That's something that, of course, with anything, that how can I approach this? So yes, it is appropriate, but at the same time, we're in such a dynamic
environment,
a dynamic job that something may change, and then we have to learn to adapt to that. So while we might be on a straight, like, yep, putting this fire out, boom, we didn't know that this was a meth house,
right?
Boom,
Right.
And one of the lessons that I love teaching there at the house is forcible entry. We have a nice forcible entry door trainer, and we do have different techniques. And one of the stories that I start off the class with is a story out of San Francisco, where firefighters had entered a building through a garage. And in San Francisco, they have those beautiful Victorian homes, and they have these cantilever garage doors. Well, 2 firefighters go in with hoses, and the door fails and it shuts, right? And so it cuts off the water supply. We have 2 guys inside. Well, one firefighter comes up and tries to open up the door, and then, of course, he can. And then, of course, another guy comes up. And, of course, what does a guy do to another guy who can't do something? What's the first thing? Get out of here. You don't know what you're doing, right? So then he starts trying to open the door. And then another guy comes up. And again, right, here comes the ego talking. Now, get out of here. You're weak. Spend some more time in the gym, John. And tries to open the door. Well, he can't. So all this time is passing by, right? Until someone decides we should get a saw. What the lesson I like to take from that is, if something isn't working right away, change it. We have to change, be dynamic, understand the situation. And if it doesn't work, you need to switch it up, place on the fire ground. And that's what gets people hurt. So yes, we can have a plan, but I'm going to quote the famous Mike Tyson, where everyone has a plan to get punched in the mouth. Well, sometimes that fire is going to punch you in the mouth, and you need to learn to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, and that's a great point too, right? And I think it was a firefighter that actually kind of talked to me about that one time. It was like, yeah, I know that all of you guys see that the fire was put out, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was done the best way, right? It was like, we can kind of see where there's some stuff not quite going the right way. And it might have been, in the end, the result was the result, and it was the result we wanted, but not necessarily the process might not have been the best approach to it. You know what I mean? That was interesting when you kind of broke that down for me. I was like, oh yeah, because all of us, who are not firefighters, we're like, oh, fire's out, cool.
Right.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, let's get some pizza and call it a day. And it's true, that it might not have gone the right way, but that was probably the best way it could have gone at the time. And that's where I think a lot of times we hem people up in the fire service to where you should have done A, B, C, and D. Yeah. Well, sometimes C comes before B, or sometimes D doesn't even come. Right. It's all based on what's happening. And I see a lot of times, especially with our newer NCOs, and they again want to do A, B, C, and D, and which is all fine. Right. But again, like, you have to be a thinking firefighter. Right. And as I came up through medic school, paramedic school is a daunting school. It is 9 months of classroom. Then you follow it up with 3 months of ER time. So you're in the ER with patients, and then you do 6 months riding on an ambulance. day in, day out, learning the trade, so on and so forth, right? And that's just to take the test. That isn't even you're not even a paramedic yet. That's just so you can sign off everything and take a test. One of the terms we use in paramedicine is cookbook paramedic, street medic. So the cookbook paramedic is just like it sounds. You're following a protocol. You're following it to the T. Mm-hmm. The street medic is like, no, that doesn't work. I'm going to use this. Fully within his protocol, fully within their scope of practice, but they know what works based off of their street performance. Mm-hmm. And as we talk about time, is we don't have the ability to make street firefighters as proficiently as we should. Yes, cookbook firefighters. I know guys they will tell me, this is how we get off the rig. Left foot down, 3 points of contact, and and honestly, I'm just like, okay, yeah, no, you're not wrong, bud. And but at the same time, in that instance, someone coming down, they break their ankle. Now my hydroman, now he has to be my lineman.
Right. So
again, now the A, B, C, and D is thrown out the window. Now I have to call for another engine. And it's that thinking, process. So as the fire in that case scenario, the fire might not have gotten out as quickly or as efficiently as he should have. Mm-hmm. But for that fire, it probably did.
Yeah, because there was a lot of stuff that might have happened, and I like your perspective on that. And that's the be water principle, right? I mean, that's the Bruce Lee be water. But the cookbook guy, right? The cookbook guy. I mean, there's a place for that. You're learning the foundations, right? There's the fundamentals, and then at some point, though, you got to realize the cookbook isn't the end, right? You got to start evolving and understand. And you know what I find to be the reason why those cookbook guys can't get to that next level is because they don't take the time to understand the fundamental principles behind the reasoning behind the cookbook steps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand that, there's no way you're going to be able to figure out how to, get to the next level and understand why that's happening. And now how can I adapt to still get to that intent?
Yeah, exactly. It's knowing that. The seasoning, I guess, would be the best way. We're going to stay with this cookbook analogy.
We're going to kill. Well, firefighters are supposed to be able to cook, right? I mean, there's supposed to be one in there, right?
Yeah, we got a couple cookbooks. I'm saying you want to head down to Travis Fire Department and pick up a couple. They're right there for it. But no, you're right. If they don't understand or they don't take the time to understand why are we doing this, and you understand the why, and it's going to open up a whole slew of answers. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things as I teach EMS, as we talk about getting to our patient and talking with our patient, EMS is very intimidating to some people, but I say, no, it's not. You approach it like a 4-year-old. What's a 4-year-old ask? Why? Oh, my head hurts. Why? You have to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why is their head hurting? And you get down to that pathophys, the pathophysiology of what's going. I hope I said that right.
We got it. We understood what you're saying.
In edit. But you understand that pathophys. You understand why it's happening. Why are they bleeding? Oh, because they have a gunshot. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's plug that up. Or why is their left arm not moving? Well, why? Oh, maybe they're having a stroke. Let's test for that. Mm-hmm. It's asking that why. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that will help us to become better. Anything is asking that why. Right. Of course, we always say that what's your why, but this is something different. But this is that why. Why, as you talk about, as an electrician, why does this junction box need to be here? You get into the codes. You talk about a mechanic. Why does the fuel line need to go underneath here? So you ask those whys. Again, approach it like a 4-year-old. Why? And then you're going to find out those answers, and you're going to understand it. And once you understand it and you could teach it, that's it right there.
Right. And that's what, when you go back to electrical or the mechanical type, that's what I've seen on that side of the engineer world is like, I can see when we'll go back to the cookbook thing. They just pull out a TO, a technical order, and go troubleshoot. They just break it down. They're like, all right, got to step 9, still don't know the answer. Do we just go ahead and refer this to higher maintenance now? We can't figure it out. And I'm like, no, wait. If you understand why those steps are there and you actually studied and fully mastered your craft to understand why, the theory behind electricity and how these things flow, you might be able to take those 9 lessons, those 9 steps, and maybe take it to step 10, or, or find out something in between. And that's the thing I was kind of alluding to earlier. I was like, mastering your craft, becoming competent, right? And how does that help build that trust within your team when that, your teammates are all competent and they're able to, adjust on the fly if need be, and they communicate very well. And I think that's so important in your career field. I mean, you literally are moving, stuff's happening, right? You're looking at a fire in front of you, and next thing is behind you. I mean, yeah. So yeah, it's amazing what you guys do.
It's definitely a calling, but to go back to the competence, it's even been quoted where even the Navy SEALs think firefighters are crazy. For them to call us crazy, that's something. But their reasoning behind it was because they train to achieve their goal. They train to achieve their mission. As we look into the book No Easy Day, the author talks about the raid on bin Laden's compound, and they had a mock-up of his compound, so they knew which way the doors would open. No surprises. There were no surprises. And so in this quote, the Navy SEAL who they question is like, these firefighters go in, they don't know their enemy, they don't know where their enemy's located, and they just, doesn't matter what time, they're going. Like, no way. They do all their homework to do that. So in that case, yes, the guy or girl next to me, they need to be competent in their job. Right. Because at the end of the day, I'm bringing them home and I'm coming home. Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to. Very simple. I have a radio strap, and on my radio strap, I have some writing on it, and in embossed letters it says EGH. Everyone goes home, because we're going home. We're all going to go home.
That's awesome.
And that's something that I want them to know. That's the reason I train. I'm coming home, and I'm going to bring you home too. As a captain, I meet a lot of wives. I meet husbands. I meet girlfriends. I meet boyfriends. And, of course, there's that romanticism about their significant other being a firefighter. But then sometimes there's that scary thought too.
Yeah.
And that's going to be my goal to them is like, I'm bringing them home. You can trust them with me. I'll bring them home. Don't you worry. I'm bringing them home. But at the same time, they need to be able to bring me home too. Because I have 2 boys at home and I have a wife, and they need to know that I'm coming home. Yeah. So, and not to get too dramatic on it, but that's right. Not to, so
hey, firefighters can be dramatic.
And scene. But no, it's you got to have that confidence in your crew also. And the way that we run, we have so many vehicles and such a large response that we cross-staff vehicles, meaning that someone might be on an engine 1 second, then a flight line emergency might come up and they got to go to a crash call. So they swap. We're swapping vehicles. So I need to know that everyone is in my department is confident, because at any given moment I could be riding with any one of them. So there isn't this I pick and choose. Yeah. It's as a collective. So, that's one of the big things that I really like to instill in our firefighters as they come through is, one, that ego doesn't have any room in our firehouse. Your pride can be left at the door. And one of the biggest things that I tell them that, you're a public servant now. Emphasis on the servant. And that really takes them down a notch. Because, I get these guys, these airmen, they come out of the tech school and, they're confident because, they've accomplished 2 great things: basic training and now the fire academy. So they, their chest is up. They're feeling really good. And I don't mean to bring them down, but I want to emphasize you're a servant now. Doesn't matter who calls us, we're going. It could be a homeless person. It could be the commander. It could be the president of the United States. And we need to treat them just the same. We serve the people. So, that kind of takes them down like, oh, hey, if we gotta clean up their poop, we gotta clean up their poop. That's what we do. And you can leave all the gagging and noise making. You can leave that in the back of the room. Yeah.
The dry heaving.
The dry heaving. Swallow it back, bud. Swallow it back. Because
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's true though. And that's one of the things that I really like to instill in our firefighters is so they know that.
Yeah. So part of that competence too, man, is something that I really noticed that you're into is fitness, right? I mean, you're doing all kinds of stuff with bands and all kind of weird like kettlebells and what's the other thing here? You guys are maces?
Steel maces.
Steel maces. Yeah. So
if it's a weird workout, I'm doing it. That's
So walk us through some just explain what's your workout regimen kind of look like, and because right now with what we're going through right now with COVID, we're talking about a lot of protective measures, but I feel like we're not talking enough about like building our immune system by eating right and exercising. Not enough, you know what I mean, in the media. So
it's so true. So true.
Yeah, so what are you how do you keep yourself healthy?
So physical fitness has definitely always been a great priority of mine. Dude, I've been doing this home workout thing since like 2010, when my firstborn, when Nico, our first born was born, and I couldn't see the advantage of being gone for 2 days on shift, coming home, and then telling my wife like, "Hey, cool, I'm home, but I'm gonna go work out for 2 hours."
Yeah.
You take care of the kid. I know you've been home with him for 2 days. So I got into home fitness. So I picked up kettlebells and learned a lot of the HIIT style workouts, incorporating, full muscular movement and also the metabolic conditioning. A lot of my metabolic conditioning comes up with time. So it'd be like a minute of work, 15 seconds rest for 30 rounds. So it's like a 30, 35 minute workout.
Yeah.
And what I got from that is, the metabolic conditioning is great and my recovery time is great on that. But I also use it, of course, I have to pertain it to my career as well. So I know that I can do a minute worth of work, take 15 seconds, and then do another minute worth of work. Mm-hmm. So in the event I have to drag someone out or pull a hand line, I know I could go straight minute, take a breather, and then get after it again. And it's just like, geez, what can I equate it to? It's like when you do something, you're already ready for the next thing. Like you know that you could do it.
Right.
It's like no one thought that the 7 minute mile, the 2 minute mile could ever be achieved. Until someone did it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. 4 minute mile.
Yeah. I was like, has anybody done a 2 minute, man? That's pretty dope.
That was last Tuesday for me. Anyway, put that one in the books. Okay, the 4 minute mile. All right, I gotta look at my references. Hold on, but once that was done, then people could do it all the time, right?
Yeah, right after too. They start breaking the record left and right. Yeah.
So same thing with our bodies. If we know that we could do it, then we could keep on doing it.
Right.
So that's why I really like that high intensity interval training. And so I got into kettlebells, and then I got into resistance bands. I was scrolling one day, of course, on the internet, like we all do, and I was looking for something else to work out at home, but I didn't want to fill my garage with weights, and I don't have the budget to do all that. So I saw this bodybuilder promoting these bands, and I was like, well, I'll just get those. And I bought them instantly. I was like, dude, what was I thinking? But I took it as an opportunity to see what they could do. And so they come in, and I just started working with them. And the owner of the company actually reached out to me. He saw what I was doing, because I would post it on Instagram. And he's like, hey, man, I love what you're doing. Check out these programs. So we got to talking about programs, and I was dumbfounded by all the things I could do with resistance bands. that I never thought possible. I thought the resistance bands were just for warming up or for somebody, just like kind of like getting into physical therapy.
Right.
But I have gained more muscle using resistance bands than I think I've ever done in my physical fitness career, simply because the consistency is there. There's no excuses. These resistance bands. Oh, go ahead.
Was that under Sun? Because I see.
Yeah, that was under Sun.
Okay. Because I see you posting that. I'm like, man, is he getting paid? That's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't get paid for anything on here, so we can talk about anything, whatever.
Oh, sweet. All right, yeah. It was under Sun, and they reached out to me. This was they weren't paying me, but
yeah, that's pretty cool.
They reached out to me, and they got these programs. Like, hey, try this program out. I was like, all right, cool. Oh man, I really like it. And like I said, I gained more muscle and lost more weight, and I felt healthier because there was that consistency. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, oh, I don't feel like going to the gym today. I was like, no, my gym is right here in the corner of my room. Like I have no excuse now. Mm-hmm. And another part of it is my why, and it's my family. And raising two young men, I want them to see, oh, my dad works out. So that's what a man is supposed to do. A man is supposed to be physically fit and so on and so forth. So for them to see that as a role model, to be healthy, to take care of themselves, so that later on in life, they emulate that as well. So to do that right in front of them is a big plus. And then my wife bought me a steel mace for Christmas one year. And, that's just been interesting. That's been interesting. Luckily, I haven't bonked myself on the head yet. But,
yeah, I got to check it out. I know I was supposed to come work out with you and then stuff came up, but I definitely want to come by before I go on this deployment, because I'd love to check it. I've never worked out with maces before. I probably will bonk myself in the head. I just got to make sure I can still deploy.
Yeah. We'll take it easy.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
But yeah, no, it's that HIIT workout. I've done the research on it, and another thing is by knowing the physical fitness, especially when it comes to the job, and I'll pertain this back to the job, is again, we're getting these young airmen that all they know is going to the gym and they just do curls.
Yeah.
And they're not working on their cardiovascular, or they're just like, I want to be big. Right. Yeah, that's cool, man. But I've had the opportunity to work with both sides of the coin. Mm-hmm. I've worked with someone who very sloth-like, didn't work out, drink. I mean, just like they needed extenders on their belts, and then I worked out with a guy who was, in shows and just jacked, right? You think a bodybuilder, that was this dude. We were on a fire and both guys tapped out at the same time. Mm. Right. So it's you have to find this in between, because I like to tell them we are functional occupational athletes. Right. Our job, we have to be fit. And a big example I use is, you look at these UFC fighters, what are they doing in the back room? They're warming up, right? Mm-hmm. Boom, boom, boom. They're getting their reps in, and they come out sweaty because they're ready, they're warmed up. It's we go into something 3:00 in the morning. We have a minute to get our gear on and a minute to get onto the rig, and we need to be moving. Mm-hmm. Our heart rate is jacked from the get-go, and we need to prepare our bodies for that. Right. And then it starts. I start making it real for them. It's we don't have that luxury. And it's been proven that a large percentage of firefighter deaths due to cardiovascular incidents. Right. And it's because of situations like that. So
I think that's awesome, man. So I remember there was a General Trent Edwards. He was AATC guy at the time, and I remember he said something that really plays to what you're trying to teach your guys. Is he said, I need you to be your best and not just try your best. And what he explained was, hey, if you're drinking all day and all week, and you're not really exercising, you're not eating right, it don't matter how hard you try that day. When you need it, it might not be enough. You know what I mean? But if you're at your best, you're constantly training, you're eating healthy, you're sleeping right, and you're taking care of yourself. When you need to pull on that best, you're at your best and you try your best, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be good enough. Right. He's like, you got to be at your best. That's why he kept on saying, I don't just need you to try your best. I need you to be at your best.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So cool, brother. Man, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I was I love to talk about the fitness. I definitely want to get out there with you. spend some time.
Anytime. It's an open invitation.
Yeah, I know.
Open
I
invitation.
need to come over there, man. I need to come over. I really appreciate your leadership in the firehouse. And I mean, I've seen all the stuff that y'all been doing, off base and taking care of the community out there. I mean, putting yourselves in danger, but getting that great training and taking care of, this entire area. And we're in Northern California, everybody. So it's just starting out here. I mean, unfortunately, it's just starting.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, people flicking cigarettes out there, lightning's hitting, all kinds of wild stuff. And
we're finding a bunch of new problems that are rising because of all the COVID stuff. So yeah,
right, absolutely, man. So it's a volatile environment out there. We really appreciate everything that you do and making sure that our guys are at their best, right? So hey, when we wrap these up, we love to ask a couple. We call it the leadership rapid fire. All right, I'm about to ask you a series of 4 questions, and it's however you want to interpret the question and however you want to answer it. All right.
Okay, like first thing that comes to my mind type of question.
Yeah,
like
pretty
Mary
much.
Poppins? No, okay.
Yeah. Most people take a little bit more time than that, but you can do whatever you want, bro. All right. So first question. All right, what is your favorite leadership trait?
Honesty.
Honesty
is the ultimate trait.
Awesome. All right, what's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote. It is, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Awesome. All right. What's a book that you would recommend to an aspiring leader?
Way of the Seal by retired Commander Mark Devine.
All right. Way of the Seal. All right. And then final question. This is the one that's like our deep question. So at the Llama Lounge, we're all about life, learning, and leadership. So how does Ricky Campos find his harmony between life, learning, and leadership?
Alcohol.
That's a great answer, brother.
No, I think physical fitness is what helps me find my harmony. And it helps me to let me just zen out everything that's either troubling or weighing me down. So yeah, definitely physical fitness.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate it, Ricky. And just want to offer you any closing words that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to be on your podcast. This has been amazing. This has been so much fun. But any words? I mean, no, not really. I mean, I will quote the great Bill and Ted when I just want to say, be excellent to each other. I think that's what we could all learn from right now.
That's very true. Very true. So thank you, Ricky, man. And like I said, it's just an honor and a privilege to work with you. And thank you so much for coming on here. And to all our listeners, as always, be safe, stay healthy, and llamas are out.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Llama Lounge podcast. Be sure to visit the homepage for links to products and services related to this episode. And don't forget to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice. See you next time.